So this is the time of the meeting when we get ready to introduce our very special guests of the evening. So happy to have them, but I'll tell you a little bit about the organization, which is TAC. During its 30 years of existence, the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, also known as TAC, has been a leading voice in the African American business community. It is a nonprofit organization, and it serves as a think tank for its members. Thereby, they strengthen, stimulate, and provide positive advocacy while disseminating useful data to our chambers. Across the state of Texas, there are 25 chambers, and they can correct me if I'm wrong later, but there are 25 African American chambers across the state of Texas, and we do support them. Since its inception, TAC has been a leading advocate in promoting and developing and enhancing local African American chambers of commerce and supporting business members that represent an array of industries. As such, TAC interacts directly with legislative, judicial, and executive branches of government to influence public policy, which we so need. Their goal is to continue being an informative and a resourceful conduit to help their members thrive and prosper. And we are proud to be a part of the TAC family. And without further ado, we do have Ms. Courtney Johnson-Rose, who is the chairwoman of TAC, and we have President Charles O'Neill. So thank y'all so much, you good-looking Black people. We're so happy to be with y'all.
Well, Xavier, thank you for having us. Mr. President, I'll jump in here first and just say thank you, Xavier, to you and your board and your members for having us. We are so excited to have San Antonio re-engage and so excited to hear about the growth you all are having. So congratulations to all of you all, and wonderful to be here. Ms. Bird, I just looked up your documentary. I can't wait to see it. So congratulations to you on that. It looks wonderful. So I took your advice, Xavier, and I Googled it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. President.
Hey, Madam Chair, you just I had to rush real quick and change my background because you stole my background. So good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to join you tonight. Madam Chair and I will offer some insight and hope to help as you join the fight. As you pursue your goals, don't lose sight. Just keep on walking toward the light. And if we're able to do this right, the future of your chamber will be bright. Now that's my poetic justice thing for y'all tonight. I
like that.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join us. You see, Madam Chair's got our logo behind her, Texas Black Chambers. Our theme is what's behind me for our most recently completed conference. We call it the R3. It's like recreating the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, for application in business environment, reimagine, reinvest, and recreate. That's what we're attempting to do as we try to build ourselves back out of this pandemic-induced devastation. And the stuff that was flashing through my mind while Xavier was introducing us, we are here in Austin. Our office is in Austin. Please come up. We're here right about 3 blocks from the Capitol. So this is your office as members of TAC. I was going to save the best part, but through the generosity of some of our contributors, our supporters as an organization, African American Chamber of San Antonio is now a fully paid member also of the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated. And so, bam, that's our gift to you tonight.
Thank y'all so much. I appreciate that.
All right.
And I really want to encourage you all, thank you, Mr. President, for that, mentioning that, but just encourage you all to utilize all of the benefits that come along with being a part of the U.S. Black Chamber. There's a lot of training for your chamber. There's a lot of business development opportunities for your individual businesses. So please take advantage of that. Our President Charles O'Neill also serves as chair of the board for the U.S. Black Chamber. So he's doing this work all over the country representing Texas, but please take advantage of that membership and everything that comes along with your chamber being a part of the U.S. network of African American chambers. I had the opportunity, maybe 2 months ago, Charles, that the U.S. Black Chamber hosted Vice President Kamala Harris and also the Secretary of Treasury. So to be on a small Zoom call with about 20 others and the Vice President and the Secretary of Treasury, that's only the opportunity that you get from being involved in the network. So I always say that TAC can put you places that you can't put yourself. So take advantage of being in the network, everything that comes along with being a member.
Thank you so much.
So Xavier, I don't know whether the team has questions for us to get into a dialogue. We would love to hear it.
Absolutely. And so Ms. J will just kind of talk about the evening in regards to what the event stands for. And then we do have some questions for you that I know you all will expertly be able to answer for us. And it's just a collaboration. So Ms. J, do you want to take it away and talk more about the event and why we came up with this?
Yes, thank you. So once again, my name is Jay. I'm one of the, I'm on the board, and I'm also the strategic planning chair for the chamber. And so I have the pleasure of outlining some events for the chamber every month. And so since April is National Poetry Month, I was like, oh, it would be cool if we kind of did like a spin, on Poetic Justice, which is, it's a classic Black film. So I was like, oh, why don't we do, the Business of Poetic Justice, in which we can really have a thought-provoking discussion on some important reasons why we should support Black-owned businesses, why we should support each other, and then really how that positively impacts the economy. So we're excited for you both to be here with us to share your expertise and your experiences and just help us to be able to, go along this path of success and support, one another. So thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you so much, Jay. So my first question to you, and I'll give a little bit of context behind it. We can trace back the origins of today's racial wealth gap, the Jim Crow, right, the era, where they practiced redlining and job discrimination, which segregated us as African Americans from higher paying jobs, entrepreneurship, home ownership, and ultimately prevented wealth building. Small business and entrepreneurs, we've had a long time wealth builders in our community, but every stop, we're getting hit. Do you believe that supporting Black-owned businesses will help with closing the racial wealth gap, or what will kind of help us close the racial wealth gap? Oh, you're muted, Courtney.
Charles, I was going to ask if you want to jump in first.
Okay, okay, at your own peril, because I can go for about 30 minutes on that one. Well, absolutely. Supporting the Black-owned businesses clearly should be our primary focus. And that's not to say that we don't support other businesses or that we don't interact with the global economy, if you will. But we're in the business of Black business. And so that should be where our first commitments are. But that can't clearly be all of the story. And we spend a lot of time as an organization, if you don't mind, trying to communicate to our members, yes, but to others that we're trying to exact a return on our investment in this economy. And so if that is manifested first through supporting Black-owned businesses, absolutely. We know that communities that are in the kind of financial shape that we are in, our Black communities nationwide, we can't really literally afford to export capital. So if there are businesses that allow us to maintain some circulation of our scant or precious financial resources inside our own community, be they organizational, however, we need to do that first. But the facts are that most of our spending is going to businesses outside of our community. And a significant part of that spending also is going out to taxing entities. And so we spend, as you see it clearly, our office is here in Austin, and we work diligently day by day, attempting to exact a return on our taxpayer investment from the state of Texas. So as advocacy organizations, and I'll try to tie this all together, as an advocate, one of your responsibilities, or all of our, but one of your responsibilities there in San Antonio is doing the same kind of work at the local level. Black folk in San Antonio, my mother was in the first graduating class of Phyllis Wheatley High School in 1934, right there in San Antonio. So we know Black folk have been paying into San Antonio for years. The city of San Antonio, if you drive the east side, you know very well that the city of San Antonio has not compensated Black folks at the same rate at which we have been taxed in San Antonio. And so your interactions with San Antonio's municipal government must place demands on that government and say, we got to get some of our money back. And so that way you are able to support the business enterprises that do exist there in East Side and across the rest of the city, of course. But we know that, again, the first order of business, support the businesses that got you there. You can grow and expand them when you're able to capture a return on those expenditures that you make outside of your community. Primary among those are tax payments, and you are legitimate. You can make a legitimate claim of return, a demand for a return on investment on taxpayer payments.
Excellent. And Charles, I will add to that a few things that I think could help close the wealth gap. Number one is supporting Black businesses. We have a lot of ground to make up. I think the last stat that I read was that the average Black family has about 12 times less of the wealth as the average white family. So if you look at how much ground that is to make up, it's hard to do that by just working a job. We have to have ownership. We have to be able to take advantage of the economic wave. We have to be able to take advantage of opportunities and timing in the market, and not just work somewhere. We have to be able to gain big, and you do that by being ownership in the business and investing. So that's a big part for it. We also have to look at home ownership. Home ownership is one of the greatest ways that we could really close the wealth gap. My background is in real estate. I'm a real estate broker, real estate developer here in the Houston area. And, you know, I see the difference in terms of the home ownership rate with African Americans versus other racial groups. African Americans right now are at about 45, 46% of African Americans own a home. For white America, that's 72 to 74% own a home. That's 30% more people. Our Hispanic Americans are right at 50%. Asian Americans are above 50%. So out of all of the ethnic groups, African Americans are at the bottom of that percentage, but it's due to a lot of the things Xavier kind of mentioned earlier, like redlining and things of that nature that has happened that has prevented African Americans from actually owning a home. But if you look at home ownership, you have to live somewhere anyway, so you might as well pay into buying a home and be able to benefit from the economic value of that. And you look at Black business and being able to take advantage of the market and take advantage of investment and take advantage of opportunities. Those are two ways that our community can really make major strides.
Well, thank you all so much. I mean, I appreciate both responses. And And to Courtney's last point, you're right. We are at the bottom of that home ownership deal, and oftentimes, we get the last of everything. We're not first when like Tiff recent with crypto, and that's a whole nother story and conversation. But a lot of times we're late to the race, where everybody else goes in and soaks it up. And we've also seen, judicially and how things roll out, even with marijuana, right? We got locked up for years, and then all of a sudden, people start making money off of it, and now they got multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar industries, and we're just now coming to the race. And so I think, to your point as well, entrepreneurship is the route, and that gives us that leverage that we need to get in the door. And I'll just share that one of the things that we're going to heavily promote in this chamber is ownership at every level. Even if it's selling lemonade on the side, you own a business. That should be a part of your portfolio somewhere. You can work a 9 to 5, but own a business. Right there with you. Next question is, in a little context, when small businesses flourish, so do their communities. But banks often hinder that prosperity by discriminating against African Americans and other entrepreneurs of color seeking small business loans. And a 2017 study of the National Community Reinvestment Coalition actually found that banks were twice as likely to provide business loans to white applicants than Black ones, and 3 times as likely to have follow-up meetings with white applicants than more qualified Black ones. So if consumer spending accounts for 70% of the entire U.S. economy, imagine what directing some of that spending power to Black-owned businesses across the country can do. The question is, how does supporting Black businesses strengthen the local economy?
Xavier, you mentioned banks and lending. And, Charles and I work this daily with the whole piece of access to capital. It's one thing to say that, a business owner is more, has more access to be able to grow a business. And it's another thing to kind of look at what happens when you can't grow. And you can't hire, and you can't take risks, and you can't expand your operations, you can't get equipment. And those are all of the things that come with having access to capital. So I love the way that you framed the question to really bring out what I think is a deeper issue, which is why we can't get access to capital. And there's a lot of reasons why that leads to not as vibrant economic economies. We kind of looked at this in several different ways at TAC and around our chambers. A few reasons, and one in terms of lending is there's a lot of bias. This is Fair Housing Month, and one of the things I was reading about in the article about fair housing is with the onset of technology and lending, it has created a lot of bias. It's interesting. You think that the computer couldn't discriminate, but the stats are showing that when you go in for your business to get a loan, and the loan officer types in your zip code of where your business is, all of a sudden the computer has an automatic bias in it. And you are rated in a certain way just based upon the zip code of where your property is or where your business is actually located at. So it's just so many different things that go into us not getting capital. And it's such a bigger issue because, to your point, Black business can really provide a major boost to our economy. When I look at it, and you look at the number of African Americans that we have in Texas, we make up almost 20% of the population. And if we were able to have vibrant businesses, if we were able to hire people from our own communities, we would be able to close the unemployment gap that's in the Black business, that's in the Black community. We would be able to invest more in our school districts. We would be able to really do a lot of self-sustaining things. But our businesses need to have that opportunity to actually grow. And a lot of that comes from the lack of growth, comes from lack of capital. So to me, it's the capital piece, how you frame the question, also affects our economy, because there's so many things that we're not able to take advantage of because of the lack of capital.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and we had a board meeting last night, and we talked about, every game we get into, we do win, because we get in and
Yes.
been at the back so long, it's time, we hungry, let's do it. So we dominate sports, we dominate, every juncture. But if we get in on the game of understanding how the economy works and how our support for Black businesses work, together we're stronger, and we can walk into banks and say, hey, this is what we're providing, and we provide data that leverages the playing field, and in which we'll win. And I didn't know if Charles wanted to put something on it. I'll pass the torch over to Jay for the other questions. But Charles, if you have anything, please feel free.
Well, clearly, access to capital is generally the answer number 1 through 10 for Black business owners when they ask what is the most pressing need. Access to capital, access to capital, access to capital. And that is absolutely critical. I used to say that 9 answers would be access to capital, and 1 answer would be access to opportunity. Nobody says, I need to be better at what I do. And so while it is very graphically clear that our inability to access capital for growth and expansion of our businesses does absolutely impact us. But as we reimagine, reinvest, and recreate in our own enterprises, we have to begin thinking about scale, how we can really truly be competitive in marketplaces causes us to have to do some different things with our businesses. That is, if there are on this call 4 very similar businesses, it may be more efficient to do an environmental scan on the talents, in those businesses, and say, maybe this is really one business with 3 operating entities inside of it, so we can scale up, make ourselves bigger in the marketplace by combining assets. And so joint ventures, mergers, straight out acquisitions have to be part of this new formula for how we address the marketplace. Clearly, access to capital plays a significant role in that, but being smarter about how we approach the marketplace with our businesses has to be moving up the chart on what's important for us to do as business organizations.
Very big. Xavier, you mentioned that we dominate, in terms of African Americans, we dominate entertainment, any industry that we get in, sports, etc. But when I to Charles's point, with access to opportunities, even when I look at the sports industry, I was so proud yesterday. I think they announced that Dwayne Wade, a past basketball player, bought ownership into the Utah Jazz. And that's the next level. We dominate basketball. We are the best athletes, but we haven't dominated in the ownership, and we haven't dominated in being able to take advantage of all of that economic opportunity. So when you see moves like that, it says we're in a new day. To what Charles's point, thinking more strategically, and utilizing his influence and utilizing his wealth to say, I'm going to get in the ownership of this. So I love examples like that of taking it to the next level, and that's exactly the way that we all have to think.
Thank you all for sharing that. That is some great information, and it's much appreciated. But I'm going to take a quick pause because I do know that Robin has a question that she would like to present. Robin?
Thank you. So my question is on reparations. Since we're discussing capital, Courtney, you had said that the average white family has 12 times the amount of wealth than that of Black families. It's been said that with reparations, this could significantly decrease. So if reparations were to be given, how would it make the most impact or difference in our communities? Would this come via investments in our education, housing, business grants? What are your thoughts?
You know, it's interesting. I was on my first Clubhouse. I'm sure y'all have heard of Clubhouse. So I was on my first Clubhouse a couple of weeks ago, and the topic was on reparations. You all are probably aware, but there's a city right outside of Chicago that the city council passed a reparations bill for that town. And what it does is it gives a family $15,000 for them to purchase a home. So Black family in that city, as a form of reparations, they get $15,000 to actually purchase a home. So when this happened, we saw it on the news. My husband and I had a big debate. He thought that it was a big win. And I thought, I think it's dangerous, because what I see is $15,000 compared to Jim Crow, compared to systematic racism, compared to 400 years of slavery, compared to all of these things that has happened. $15,000 is not a drop in the bucket. But what I'm afraid of with small reparation opportunities like that, although it's good because it could help a family get into home ownership, I just think it needs to be framed as that's a start. That's one example. That's where that city is going to start from and keep building. I personally believe in reparations. I think there's nothing that you can really do to make African Americans whole, but I think that the efforts should be done. But I think it has to be framed the appropriate way, that it's an ongoing process. And a $15,000 home ownership grant is not make up for years of systematic racism. So as long as it is framed in the right way, I think reparations can be good. And I think it's something that we should advocate for. Mr. President, what you think about reparations?
I think, without question, there is no level of compensation that could make up for what Black folk have experienced in this country. And I'll do this FYI, full disclosure kind of deal. I was in the newspaper business for about 20 years. And so I got opinions about everything, right? and what we do is work for Black folk. That's what I do. I work for Black people exclusively. Everybody else got somebody working for them. So my concerns are not what happens to Asian Americans, Hispanics, white folk, or anything like that. I'm worried about Black folk. And if tomorrow, every one of us had an extra $5, an extra $5 million in our account, my concern would be the rate at which we returned it to the marketplace. And so whatever compensation we got as a function of reparations, if we just gave it back, then we've accomplished nothing. And so the kind of thinking that has to be evolving around our demands for compensation for past injustices has to disrupt the status quo in enough of a manner that we control our entry and exit from the economy. If we're just going to be status quo maintenance, if we're just going to be business as usual, so we have to begin thinking about in terms of, and Madam Chair has been hearing me talk about this, food, clothing, and shelter. If we cannot, let me back a little further than that, if you will. If we accept that the fundamental building blocks of capitalism is controlling the means of production, not the rate at which goods are consumed, but the rate of production, then we have to begin thinking about enterprises that are grounded in the production of the goods and services necessary for either our convenience or our consumption. If we're thinking solely about business enterprises that are convenience oriented, that simply supply some immediate need rather than those things that sustain us, again, food, clothing, shelter. For instance, there's a brother I know who's one of our members who is a brick mason. a masonry contractor, and he's done big contracts. He's done schools, he's done hospitals, he's done convention centers. And he said, Charles, I'm thinking about retiring. Well, man, I mean, okay, I don't have any problem with that. You can retire, but let's make sure that you sell this ongoing enterprise to another brother or sister who could take it to the quote unquote proverbial next level. And what we'll do is we'll take the proceeds from that sale and go find a brick manufacturing facility, right? So now the old brick mason can buy the bricks from another brother. Those kinds of things, okay? We got plumbers, we got electricians, we got brick masons, so we can be in the home building business, but we've been shut out of those industries because, again, financing opportunities have been withheld from us. So we've got to think strategically on how we take care of ourselves. Finally, my father was in the military. So if an army can't feed itself, it will get beat every time out on the battlefield. And I always explain it like this. I talk to young students in elementary school, ask them where corn comes from, and they say, Kroger. Well, we have to begin thinking in terms of the things that make us able to do for self. So that is food, clothing, and shelter, and that is making sure that if we understand capitalism, capitalism is controlling the means of production. Labor is a function of production, and all technological advances are designed to reduce the need for labor. So we know that all this hype about technology means then it's going to be less need for us in the marketplace, unless we factor for their approach to the economy. Their approach to the economy does not include us as all, except as consumers. That's a problem. So I got a sermon for you.
Well, thank you for that. So we have about, let's say 19 minutes to go, but we do have a couple of more questions that I definitely want to present and put on the table. So one of the questions is, so thinking in terms of many African-American small businesses, because of the lack of access when it comes to funding in certain situations, as we discussed already, this tends to mean that most Black businesses are sole proprietorships, and they don't tend to make enough money to be able to bring on employees. So however, in thinking of terms of that, if Black-owned businesses had, that access to money, then do you foresee them being able to then bring more people in? So because they're bringing those people in, then they're more likely to be able to support the local community in a more positive way, because then supporting them, can foster the job opportunities for people so that they can in turn have financial stability in the long run. So then keeping that in mind, what impact then does this have on the Black community or as a community as a whole? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And Jay, this is big, because the number one employer of Black business, of Black people, are Black businesses. We hire more people of color than any other entity, even the government. So you're more likely as an African American to get a job with a Black-owned business. So when we look at that to say, well, we're the number one employer of African Americans, imagine if every Black business was able to hire 1 or 2 or 3 more people, what would that mean to the overall African American economy? And quite honestly, what would it mean to the U.S. economy? McKinsey and Company is a well-known consulting firm. They did a study, and it said closing the racial gap between white and Black would unlock part of the U.S. economy that's never been unlocked before. 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion in annual gross domestic product would come from closing the racial wealth gap. So this is a lot of commerce, a lot of opportunity, a lot of jobs. It creates a whole ecosystem that we don't have now. And it can really be a financial decision. There's another stat too that's kind of interesting on diversity, which is, the new buzzword now. And that stat is that companies that have a diverse management team and diverse leadership team are more profitable. So the diversity around the table, the different voices and perspectives around the table, stats show your company is more profitable. So there's a lot of reasons to incorporate African Americans. There's a lot of reasons to look at access to capital and really building this market and this community. And it's a financial benefit. And I think we have to start talking more about the business case. The reality of it is that the population is changing. Houston is where I live is deemed to be one of the most diverse cities, or the diverse city in the country. So there's majority minority here. I'm sure San Antonio has similar demographics, etc. And what I think you're seeing a lot of, particularly with these voting rights acts and bills across the country, is that shift. And that shift is actually coming where you see the population numbers changing. And that could mean a lot of things in terms of economics, it means a lot of things in terms of politics, etc. We've seen it all over the country. But I really feel like the other parts that we have to focus on is kind of, the economy of it all. I feel like the civil rights movement of the 60s was about equality. That's about, I can go to any bathroom, I can live in any neighborhood. This civil rights movement that we're in, and if you didn't know, you are in the civil rights movement right now. Every day something else new happens. We are in a movement. I think this one is about equity. The conversation is different. And it's not just about being equal, it's about equity. We're having conversations about reparations. We're having conversations about programs for African Americans. We're having conversations that need to be had, because I think that this time around, we have to focus on equity and focus on not just the ability to be at the table, but how do we own this actual table? So I think it's a different conversation. I feel the atmosphere is a little bit different, and I think this is our time to drive this point home. And when we look back in 20 years, we'll say we were part of the civil rights movement 2.0 that was about equity and really about capital at this time.
That's good. One of the other considerations we really have to make, again, is we're serious about ensuring that Black-owned businesses are able to be profitable enough to expand and employ more Black employees. Then we got to be serious enough about our pursuit of these expanded enterprises to tell folk, you don't need to be in business, because some folk don't need to be in business. Some people are not good, and what they'll do is they'll make something happen in the marketplace that will cost Jay an opportunity at accessing capital, or Ms. Whalen won't be able to access capital because they had a bad experience with somebody that was not good. So we got to be that honest with ourselves. Again, if we're an advocacy organization and we've got 5 plumbers in our organization, so that means that there's 5 phone bills being paid, perhaps 5 leaseholds being paid, there's 5 fleets being maintained, 5 employee benefit programs if they're that fortunate to do that, when we know that's inefficient. And we've got to be able to talk to those folk that have come to us to assist them in growth of their business. And we got to tell them that's what you're doing right now is not going to get you to the next level. What we got to do is we got to be able to think in a whole new way about our approach to the marketplace. Finally, I'll say, and this is the other challenge I make to people, is that if you'll show me Mr. General and Mr. Motors, I'll eat your hat. See, it doesn't make any difference whose name is on the side of the truck. We just got to get the business. They say we can sell all the cars in the world, man, if we just get together. Well, we know that. We've seen that. So we know what we should be doing as business owners. And particularly, again, as I want you all, the last thing I'll say on this is that you guys you consciously decided to be in the business advocacy business. I take that very seriously. I want you to take it very seriously too. So you can't do knee-jerk stuff. You know, you got to be thinking in those 3 or 4 or 5 dimensions that folk are going to come to you for help. You know, and you got to be elastic enough in your thinking to say, you got to cut yours off. Now you can't think about your business because they came to you for help. So now you got to be flexible enough to say, let me look at your issue and then have enough reach to hit the resources that they need to solve their issue. And that's how ATTACK can be here and trace its history to 1936. You know, that's how a Greater Houston Black Chamber can trace its history to 1935, or Dallas can trace its history to 1926. It's because you gotta be committed to what you signed up for. And so we have every expectation that the African American Chamber of San Antonio is gonna do great things, but you gotta, you know, we need you bad, man, we need you. And so Black folk in San Antonio and surrounding communities need you bad, but they need you on your best game, you know, and that's what's going to get us to that proverbial next level.
Thank you for that, Charles. As a follow-up, you talked about joint venture several times in this piece. Now, I really do believe that's how we form up like Voltron, you know, and really make some things happen. But in that piece is a little circle called trust. And how do we build trust amongst African Americans in business? Because as you know, we think they ice water colder, and they grass greener. But how do we build that trust so we can start the JV and really go after some contracts and make some things happen?
You know, trust is a big issue in our community. And it's probably, I would say, one of the biggest deterrents to our growth. I'm involved now in 2 joint ventures, and where I met the partners at was through organizations like the Chamber. What I have found, and I want to encourage all of your members to take your volunteerism seriously. Take your service in the chamber seriously. I have a joint venture now with a gentleman named Kevin Riles out of Houston. And Kevin and I both got into real estate at the same time. And we were served on the board of the Houston Black Real Estate Association together several years ago. He and I were both the youngest ones on the board. We used to have to go get the water and, you know, get there early, open up the building, etc. But we developed a friendship. A few years later, both he and I rolled on to the Greater Houston Black Chamber Board at the same time. So through our interactions on the board, you know, meeting at the board meeting, seeing how he voted on issues, seeing how prepared he was, seeing how prepared I was, seeing my thought process, how I attack problems, have some stressful things. He served as a treasurer, I served as chair. We had to work together. Well, how do you do the budget? Well, all of a sudden, guess what? We're running a business together of the chamber. So when the time came for a opportunity to do the real estate work for Houston Community College, both of our firms were too small to be able to realistically get it based on the competition. So we came together and formed a joint venture and went after that particular work. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. Since we have done that, we've won Houston Community College. We have the Harris Center of Mental Health that we do real estate for. We do real estate for Houston Independent School District. We do work for the Houston Housing Authority, all through our joint ventures. So out of all the firms on the list for the Houston Community College, the City of Houston, all these entities I named, we are the only minority firm. But because we came together, we are the firm that is now the go-to for government contracting. But I never would have just been able to walk up to Kevin on the street and say, hey, let's just do a joint venture. It was the relationship that was built through volunteering, through being a part of the chamber, that I got to know him, he got to know me. I know his wife, I know his daughter, because we, have the Pinnacle Awards on saying, hey, to his wife. All of these experiences helped us develop a relationship. So I would really say trust is developed over time, but sometimes it is making sure that you're representing yourself in a trustworthy manner. And really, I can't stress volunteer opportunities enough, because you're doing an interview and you don't even realize you're doing an interview. We just got to see how professional tonight Jay is, how prepared she is. She was here on time. She asked the right questions, very insightful. Well, now I just learned something about Jay. So this is an opportunity. You don't, you take it for granted. You get on the Zoom and you're not really paying attention, but all of it works together. You can really find some great relationships and potential business partners within the chamber. So my advice on that joint venture is use the network, use the chamber to actually build a trust and find excellent partners for yourself in your business.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
One of my old mentors would say, Black folk are the best in the world at monkey see, monkey do. Demonstrate it to them. They'll believe you. They'll trust you when they see you doing it. And you got the foundation to pull it off.
Thank you. I know we have about 5 minutes left, and Nico had a question, and I wanted to make sure that that question got asked.
Hey, yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, I am currently in California. I have a business. It's a multi-million-dollar business, and I'm getting ready to venture out to San Antonio, Texas. And I was having a realtor to look for me an office that was in the Converse area. And the comment was made about the computer system, about where you have your business at, has a lot to do with the growth. So my question is that, is it wise for me to put my business in Converse, or should I move to the white area or the more predominant area that is a business-like area?
So who wants to take that? If not, I can lend a voice to it.
Yeah, Xavier, I'm not familiar enough with the San Antonio markets and demographics. I know it's very diverse there, but that's hard for me to give a perspective on.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Nico, I'll say that, it boils down to a few factors, right? Your market research and where you think your business could grow and thrive. Sometimes you can step into an arena where business is happening and easily onboard your operations coming out of California right here in San Antonio or Converse or whatever side of San Antonio business is thriving. And that's the easy ramp. Or you could step into Converse and really change the dynamic of that environment by putting your business in that place and then reaching out beyond the walls, because San Antonio is a large city, but it has a very small field. So tapping into, the African American Chamber of Commerce and us utilizing our resources, we can help you reach beyond the walls of Converse and still operate and maintain your business and grow it there as well. So it's really about, from my perspective, I think it boils down to two choices. Do you want the easy route? Or do you want to kind of get in there, grow some seeds, grow some relationships, and really help Converse put itself on the map, especially for minority businesses?
That's awesome.
Okay, great, thank you. I would just say this is that I am a fighter, and I am here to support the Black businesses. and I want to do my part. As the gentleman said a while back, some of us, we get up to that level and we want to retire, and we need to be able to give back, basically. And I'm one of those guys where I have got up to that level. Again, I have a multi-million-dollar business. I do work for the government. I want to retire, but I want to be able to give back. So thank you for the information. And I'm definitely going to put my business in Converse because I'm a fighter. Thank you.
Well, Nico, thank you so much. And we would love to have you a part of our chamber to help educate our folks. And we would just to learn from you as we grow our businesses as well. So give me a call whenever you can, and let's chat.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yes, definitely reach
Email
out.
address.
And Nico, this is Mrs. Bird, and I live in Converse. So contact me when you get here.
Okay, I will. I should be there next month.
Okay, bird to bird.
You got it. Thank you.
Hey man, I told you I'm a salesman, man. When you get down to the bottom, I say, you talking about you gonna call him, send him, get his email, send him an invoice, man. He ready to remember. He committed to be a member tonight, man.
Sign him up, right?
Go to MailChimp and send Mr. Perkins an email right now.
Right now, man. Shoot. Name an award for him, you know. Shoot, welcome to Converse.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to you being here. I live in the Cibolo area with my family, so it is definitely expanding and growing out here. So yeah, it would be a great addition, I'm sure. So it is 7:30, but I did want to get this question in, so I hope you don't mind going a little bit over, but it just really goes back to what Courtney presented, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because, that is, the big thing that's going around right now. So then my question is, do you believe that Black businesses now really hold non-Black businesses or companies accountable? So then looking through the lens of diversity and equity and inclusion, knowing that there are small Black businesses out there, what does that look like? Like, are our businesses now holding these other companies more accountable when it comes to making sure that they are diverse and that equity is, an important part of where their company is right now?
This whole
Go ahead, Madam Chair, go ahead.
This whole idea of accountability, I think, is going to be interesting. TAC every year invites a partner, William Cunningham of ours, who is an economist out of DC, and he's a part of our conference each year with us. When the pandemic hit and the George Floyd incident happened, and all of the companies start making pledges to the Black community and with diversity, equity, and inclusion, he started to make a list. And he had a team, and they were, tracking all of the companies' commitments and breaking down what the commitments were. A couple of things that he discovered from it: out of the $40 billion of commitments made, only 100 million was really money that you could put your hands on. It was, other very intangible, in-kind type of things that you can't really touch to say, hey, our chambers can get access to some funding. Your church can get access to some funding. Your school for your children can access to some funding. So a lot of the goals sounded large, but they weren't really tangible. The other thing that they are going to do when they're in the process of, and I hope that they have the funding to continue, is they're going to track. So that accountability is going to be a part of this process where it's not just lip service. I was very, we haven't talked about this, but I was very surprised yesterday with the verdict in the George Floyd murder. And things are different. And I was, thinking about this last night and what was different and what's changing. And really, the video is what really changed it. CNN showed what was in the police report versus what we saw on the video. Without the video, you would have had this police report that said there was a little incident and the man had a medical episode and that's why he died. But the video of the George Floyd murder shows you something totally different. I correlate that to what I hope will happen with diversity and inclusion and these big commitments and accountability is now that we have the social media and we have the Instagram and we have these ways of communicating, we have these ways of talking. I'm hoping that it makes transparency a must. So when these big commitments are made, that the conversation can happen. Well, Wells Fargo made a commitment $4 billion. How's Wells Fargo doing? And that conversation can actually play out. And I think that could be the difference in accountability in this day and the age. I think the technology and the social media can actually help us get more accountability.
Sure. My caution is always that diversity and diversion have the same root word, right? And so we have to be careful even in our and make sure that our interpretations are the same as those folk who are offering these platitudes, amorphous as they are. If the money don't change, it was just an exercise, and so we have to be very, very focused in what our expected outcomes for their activity. They're talking diversity, equity, and inclusion as long as the money don't change.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal as a business organization is to make sure that the money does change. And so, again, it's looking through the telescope from a different end. We got to be very, very, very focused on what our end goals are and not so much on helping them achieve whatever makes them feel like they've achieved their goals of, oh, well, we're diverse and boy, look at our employees over there. That's not what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of growing Black-owned businesses. And so that's a very, very different outcome. So the expectation is that we do. Real quick, you started off by talking about National Coalition, National Community Redevelopment Coalition, right? I've been to their annual conference. They've been in business about 30 years. Their budget is probably close to $200 million. And the communities they claim they are supporting are still bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
But they're diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Their rhetoric says they're pursuing inclusion and equity. But I watched the annual meeting where the retiring chairman named his son the following executive director behind him. So they got a family enterprise going. These not Black folk now. So even as the appearance is that they're doing something to help us, they have built they got real estate downtown DC. Do you know how much money that costs? And again, these folk are coming in from these little hamlets across the country saying, come, boy, we need this kind of help. And so they got relationships with all the financial institutions that we need.
Yeah.
And they get the investments from them, but those investments never trickle down. You got right there in your hometown, Lift Fund. Used to be Axion, Texas. They've grown that enterprise. Now they're operating, I think, in 11 states, 12 states. They started right there in San Antonio, and they have a horrible record of failing to lend to Black-owned businesses. But they get all the money that would be directed to support the growth and expansion of your membership or your targeted membership. And if you're not putting pressure on Lift Fund And they right there in San Antonio, and they getting all the CRA money from all the big banks in the state. And they're not lending them to your members. So you got some work to do, you know. And they can't tell you no.
Roger that.
Thank you both for sharing that information. It was definitely insightful. And I really appreciate you bringing up that piece about, the root word. And I never considered that or thought about that. So I'm really glad that you put that out there on the table. And it is very important to make sure that whoever we choose to do business with or to connect with, we all have that same vision, that same mission, and the same end goal in mind. I don't know if you all are familiar with the book. I believe it's called, I have to go back. It's by Simon Sinek, but I'm trying to look at it. Oh, The Infinite Game. I see it on my shelf. It's called The Infinite Game. And in it, he really talks about knowing what your just cause is for your business or for your organization. And that is very different than your why, because your why, is really rooted in past tense, whereas your just cause is rooted in your future. And so then thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to lay out in my company, in my business, in my organization, that long after I'm gone, it is still thriving in that, that environment. And so the only way that can really happen is if everyone that works within that organization is on the same page and is handing that down to whoever comes after them, and they're still carrying that forward with them. So I really like how you brought that up, because it's very important, in that aspect. So thank you for that. Thank you both, Charles and Courtney, for being here with us this evening and sharing all of this wonderful information. It can be very beneficial to not only us, but for others who come along that we'll be able to share this recording with. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us, and congratulations to you all again. And it has been a wonderful evening. And I thank you all again for inviting us to be a part of your meeting tonight. And I put my contact information in the chat also too, if anybody wants to reach out.
Thank you again. And I want to say first, thank you to Jay for putting together this amazing event, as well as future events that's coming as well. And I'm sure she'll talk about the next one, but to Chairwoman Courtney and President Charles, thank you sincerely. Hopefully we get to see each other in person soon. I am vaccinated, so hopefully we can put something together at the TAC level and make some magic happen. We look forward to bridging all gaps with you and the rest of the chambers around Texas. And thank you so much for the gift of belonging to the U.S. Black Chambers as well. That gives us some good footing and ground to connect even more resources. So from our heart to yours, thank you, and we love you. So Jay, do you want to talk about the upcoming event? And we'll close.
Yeah, so I'll actually bring up the next two events, if you don't mind. So the one that we have coming up here in May is centered more around men. We had one for March for Women's History Month, Queens in Control, Shattering Ceilings. So for May, we are doing Kings in Power. It's an entrepreneurial mindset. So really looking at speaking to small business owners, but also those who work within an organization and still have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so just thinking in terms of, okay, well, how does this mindset, how are we able to take it and to build and sustain a business in today's society? And then how can these small businesses also work with these larger organizations? And like you were talking about, those joint ventures, and really support one another and leverage our strengths with one another in order to progress and to move forward. And then in June, of course, we have Juneteenth. And so the topic for June is called There's Freedom in Owning a Business. So then having the conversation that's centered around, you know, being a business owner, you have more of a sense of a control of your own destiny, especially when it comes to finances, and then finding that work-life balance, risk versus reward, and really challenging self when it comes to business, and, you know, the passion that goes into it. And then overall, how our businesses can then in turn give back to the community. So that's where we're going here within the next couple of months. And then we do have some things lined out for the rest of the year. So if, you know, you two would like to join in and participate or be a part of that, definitely reach out and let us know. We'd really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Anything that we can do. And if I could do one quick commercial, I got this deal. If you can see that, Monday Morning Momentum coming up. And we'll get you some information about it. This coming Monday, we're going to have the state president of the NAACP on our Monday morning. That's at 10:30 on Monday. We do it roughly every other Monday, trying to get our schedule kind of got herky-jerky, but we're 2 times a month. But this coming Monday, having the state president of the NAACP on to talk about House Bill 6 and Senate Bill 7, the voter suppression bills that are currently working their way through the Texas legislature. It's battle stations, y'all. It's battle stations, because the likelihood is both bills are going to pass, which means that we'll have some voter suppression bills on us, much like Georgia. And that means that everything has changed as a result of our state legislature, the government that we pay for, mind you, that has got these bills up. And so we as an organization feel we have some responsibility, just as you just noted, Jay. Business owners, one of the things about being a business owner is civic responsibility comes along with it. And so we want our members to be armed with accurate information about what we face as a community. And we want to be able to deploy the resources that we have to diminish the impacts of these really, I've read them both, and they're just really rot gut pieces of legislation. So we need to be prepared. So that's just coming Monday, and we'll get an email out, a blast out to everyone, but it's a Zoom call, and everybody's welcome. Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we look forward to joining in on that and learning some more. We're right there with you. So we're ready to rock and roll. All right. Well, if no one else has anything, questions or concerns, we'll get ready to kick off on this meeting. But thank you all for joining. Again, thank you to TAC leadership. Thank you to Jay. Thank you to the board members. And if you know someone who would be a great fit for our chamber, please invite them to visit our website at www.africanamericanchambersa.org. It is long because I want people to spell out the name and let them know that we are here. We'll make that smaller later. But for now, AfricanAmericanChamberSA.org. Peace.
Right.
Have a good one.
All right. Yeah, take care. All right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good to see you, man. Appreciate y'all. Okay.
Good night.
Call on us if we can help.
Right.
All right.
Thank you so much.